Assalamu alaikum. I'm outside the Sacred Heart Church in Newcastle upon Tyne. I'm going to go inside in a moment to meet the local priest to talk about life, faith and everything in between, and give him this, some quality Islamic literature. Join us in a moment. If I can tell you a bit about what we do at IDC. IDC North East, it stands for Islamic Diversity Centre, and we're based in the West End of Newcastle. And our motto is challenging stereotypes, removing misconceptions. And we're dedicated to providing people with accurate information about Islam. We're not in the business of trying to convert people. We actually don't believe that's possible. We believe that it's Almighty God who guides people to whatever He wants. Yeah. And what we see our job at IDC to do is to give people the facts and let them make an informed decision. Because whatever people think of Islam, a lot of what we see on TV and here on the radio, etc., it's not true. It's inaccurate information. So what we're passionate about is giving people the correct information and letting them make their own minds up based on facts. And that's what we do. So I go to schools and I come and meet people of different religions like you, and also going into even into the city centre in Newcastle on Saturdays and speak to the general public to answer any questions they have about Islam, to put right any misconceptions they have. That's really what we're dedicated to. Thanks for letting us in to discuss life and faith in the 21st century in the northeast of England. And if you don't mind, first of all, Father Jim, tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from, how long you've been priest here at Sacred Heart Church in Gosforth.
Well, I'm originally I'm quite a local person. I grew up between Wazin and North Shields, that area down as I say, Newcastle, down the water, down the river, and my father and mother were very ordinary people. My father worked in the shipyards and mother worked in school dinners and that sort of thing. Very ordinary people. But I was academically educated. I went to a grammar school at Newcastle, St Cuthbert's, the boys' grammar school. And from there I went to study for the priesthood as a teenager when I was about 17, to the senior seminary. While I was at Ushaw College, where the priests are trained, I was at Durham University doing a degree in theology. And I was ordained 40 years ago last year in the autumn of 1971, and I was 23, and after a short while in the parish I was sent teaching, and I taught for a long time, about 17 years, at St Cuthbert's High School in Newcastle, and I went into parish life in County Durham. Okay. And I ran two Catholic parishes, one at Consett and then one at Newton Aycliffe in South West Durham, and I was sent back up here by my boss, the bishop, 4 years ago this month, to replace a guy who was here who was actually quite poorly. Okay. So I've been in North Gosforth, which is the name of this area, for the last 4 years, exactly 4 years.
And since you were ordained, like you say, 40 years ago, which is some feat, how has things changed?
Enormously.
In what ways?
Well, I mean, obviously things are much more comfortable than they were 40 years ago. But as far as religious practice goes, it's much less than it was 40 years ago. In my home place, there was a very strong Catholic influence in the Wallsend area. But that's now disappeared. And so I think, like all Christian religions at least, we are struggling really to hold our own, really, to keep ourselves organised.
In your opinion, what should somebody who considers himself or herself a follower of Christ be doing in British society in the 21st century? What should his or her priorities be to live a Christ-like life?
I think the most important thing is to be true to oneself, to be true to one's beliefs, and not to be afraid to let people know that you have these beliefs, because our society is aggressively secular now. And all religions must have found this, not just the Catholic Church, but all Christian religions, all other religions which operate, are doing so against a background where there's a media which takes the secular agenda very seriously and sometimes pushes it to the detriment of religion. So I think people who are individual Christians, or in our case Catholic Christians, all they can do is stand up for what they believe to be right, and in their own hearts try and practice their faith to the best of their ability. It's very easy in our country to let the practice of religion slide into a sort of a very easy element of goodwill and nothing else, whereas it does involve commitments about how we treat our family, our approach towards life, towards behaviour, towards prayer. All of these things do matter in all religions, and sometimes in our society it's very difficult to practice all of those things to keep these basic elements of religion going. For some people in society, religion is a form of superstition. rather than actual commitment to believing in a personal God who loves us and wants us to have a relationship with him. And that's a difficulty I think we all face.
So you'd say being true to ourselves, being true to oneself, and also having the courage to make that known and to not compromise. Would you agree with that?
Yes, as long as the non-compromising bit doesn't mean ramming it down people's throats. It has to be a balance here, because if you do that, they'll just switch off.
Yeah. How do we reintroduce God into people's lives in Britain in the 21st century, in an environment which, as you said, is often hostile to belief in God, which treats belief in God, which for us is a logical thing. To us, when we see the creation, we instantly assume there must be a creator. But we live in an environment where that's being questioned. How do we reintroduce God into people's lives without making them run away?
I don't know, to be honest, is a short answer. I think all we can do is to try and, in our own lives, live the message that we take to be seriously, and let people know that when we do have happy moments, and which we do in our faith, have happy moments and moments of goodwill and peace and so on, to let people say that's because we have this relationship with the Creator God, who loves us, and who wants us to love him and others in return. It's very difficult to get a message across without appearing to be over-dogmatic and over-strong. And the balance is to get this thing right, which I find quite, I myself do find quite difficult. And the difference comes when we have moral beliefs about things like the family and about human behaviour, which are at odds with a secular society. In a free-for-all country like Britain, where people more or less do what they like, short of breaking the law of the land. But in that sort of case where there's no, let's say, moral imposition of the law, of the Christian or any other moral code, to try and have this, to let people know that what we think is right is true for everyone, not just us, because it makes people in the long run happier and better. But that's a difficult thing to do.
And is it something which you and other clergymen often think about? Is it a challenge which you've often meditated upon?
Yes, because in this country things like abortion and things like that are commonly accepted by the society at large. Yet we find it in our own church quite a difficult area. And to try and have a sense of freedom of people to have scope to do what they want and within the freedom of the law, combined with a personal moral standing, is quite difficult. It's a tension living in a liberal democracy, which doesn't support any particular religious view of life. How we can actually accept the idea of civil freedom with a personal religious belief that some things which the freedom accepts are actually morally wrong. And that's our difficulty.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can use human common sense and practical things to make life longer and better. And the medical advances have been fantastic this last 100 years. But at the same time, the number of people, for instance, dying of alcoholism in the 60s in Newcastle is extremely high because of how they're living their life, and the government's worried about this at the moment. The number of people who are committing suicide through having had a dependency on drugs and now suffer depression is quite high in all parts of the country. That to me just shows how behaviour can actually ruin what otherwise would be a long and prosperous life. Well, the biggest problem in this area at the moment, I think it's true in the whole country, but it's very bad in some parts of Newcastle, is family breakdown. Is that some children don't know who their parents are, who their father is. And this whole family collapse is one of the curses of British society at the moment, to me. It's just destroying the very fabric of what we are as a country, because families no longer exist in some places.
Yeah. Well, Father, a lot of Muslims watch our videos on Facebook and on our website, and mainly in the northeast, but actually Muslims all over the world. This is your opportunity. If you've got anything you would like to say, please do feel free.
The word I would use is peace. I think all of us in religion, living in our society in Britain and similar places throughout the world, feel as if we are fighting a battle to try and keep religious practice alive in society. And the Pope made this point when he visited this country about 16 months ago in the September of 2010. And the problem he made was to try and sort of, with all of us in religious life, and he met all the religious leaders in London on that occasion, from all the churches and all the great faiths. And the idea was that we work together to try and make the world a better place with a sense of the holy.
Mm-hmm.
And when Islam does this, I support them all the way, to try and bring into people's lives a sense of the other.
Mm-hmm.
And to, in our society, to try and make this work for peace, and stability, and family life is the best thing we can all do together. Now, commend all Muslims for that. They're bringing peace to the world and bringing a sense of family stability to our country. It's the greatest requirement.
Lastly, we have this. This is just a small box with a few sweets and information about us and what we do.
No, not chocolate. Not chocolate. I hope.
It's not chocolate. There's a word that's original in there. So this is for you, Father,
Thank you very much.
to read or to not read at your own.
Thank you very much. Very kind.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you.
And it's been lovely, and hopefully we'll...
I wish you all the very best for the future.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.